Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. The iron fence was hot under Amara's fingers. She pressed her face between the bars, ignoring the rust that stained her cheeks, her eyes locked on the whiteboard inside the classroom. Mrs. Okonkwo was explaining quadratic equations, her chalk dancing across the board in elegant swoops. Amara's lips moved silently, repeating every word, every formula, committing it all to the cramped corridors of her brilliant mind. This was her school now. Stolen glimpses through metal bars, forbidden knowledge snatched from behind locked gates. The sun blazed overhead, turning the Lagos streets into rivers of shimmering heat. But Amara didn't move. She couldn't. This was the only education she had left, and she would take every second of it, even if it burned her skin raw. A stone struck her shoulder. Sharp pain exploded across her back as Amara spun around, her heart hammering against her ribs. 3 boys stood behind her, their school uniforms crisp and clean, their faces twisted with disgust. "Street rat," the tallest one spat, his voice dripping with venom. "Why are you staring at our school like a thief?" Another stone flew past her ear. Amara stumbled backward, her worn slippers catching on the uneven pavement. She didn't cry. She had learned long ago that tears only made them laugh harder. Instead, she grabbed her mother's hand, her mother who sat motionless on the sidewalk, humming a song only she could hear, her eyes glazed and distant. "Come, Mama," Amara whispered, pulling the older woman to her feet. Her mother's dress was torn at the hem, her hair matted with dirt. Mental illness had stolen her mind years ago, leaving Amara to navigate this cruel world alone. They walked away from the school, away from the laughter and the stones, deeper into the labyrinth of Yaba's poorest streets. The smell of rotting garbage mixed with fried plantains filled the air. Naked children played in puddles of dirty water while their mothers shouted from doorways. Amara kept her head down, her hand tight around her mother's wrist. This was home. A cardboard shelter wedged between 2 abandoned shops, held together with rope and hope. Inside, there was nothing. No bed, no table, no comfort. Just 2 thin blankets and a plastic bucket they used for everything. Amara helped her mother sit down, then reached for the small bag she kept hidden beneath the blankets. Inside were 3 notebooks, their pages filled with her handwriting, everything she had learned from watching through fences and windows. Mathematics, English, science. She had taught herself more than most children ever learned in proper schools. "Amara, are you hungry?" Her mother's voice was suddenly clear, her eyes focusing for just a moment. These brief windows of clarity were rare, precious as diamonds. Amara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Yes, Mama. But I'll get us food soon, I promise." She had 5 small bottles of water left to sell, each one worth 20 naira if she could find buyers. 40 naira might buy them a small loaf of bread and maybe some ground nuts. It wasn't much, but it would keep them alive another day. Her mother's eyes clouded over again. The moment of recognition fading like mist under the sun, she began humming again. That same haunting melody that never ended. Amara touched her mother's face gently, remembering when those eyes had been bright, when that voice had sung her lullabies, when they had lived in a real house with real walls. Before the sickness, before her father died, before everything fell apart. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Amara gathered her water bottles and headed toward the main road. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but she had grown used to the feeling. Hunger was an old companion, as familiar as her own shadow. She positioned herself at the traffic lights where cars idled in the evening rush. "Pure water, cold, pure water," she called out, her voice competing with a dozen other street vendors. Some drivers waved her away. Others ignored her completely. One woman rolled down her window and bought 2 sachets, handing Amara a crumpled 50 naira note without waiting for change. Amara's heart leaped. An extra 10 naira meant she could buy her mother a piece of meat tomorrow. These small victories were what kept her going. Tiny moments of unexpected kindness in an otherwise merciless world. But as she turned to cross the street, a black Mercedes nearly struck her. Brakes squealed, horns blared. A man in an expensive suit jumped out, his face purple with rage. "You stupid girl! Are you trying to die?" he shouted, raising his hand as if to strike her. Amara froze, her water bottles clutched against her chest like a shield. She waited for the blow, her body already tensed for pain. But it never came. Instead, a voice, young, female, sharp with authority, cut through the chaos. "Leave her alone!" A girl emerged from the back seat of the Mercedes, her school uniform immaculate, her face flushed with anger. She couldn't have been more than 13, the same age as Amara. But she carried herself like someone who had never known fear. "She's just a child, Uncle Joseph. You almost killed her with your reckless driving." The driver stepped back, muttering apologies. The girl's eyes met Amara's, and something passed between them. A spark of recognition that neither could explain. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment Amara's impossible life began to shift towards something she had never dared to dream. The girl's name was Jessica Adeyemi, and she walked like the world owed her an apology. Amara learned this over the next few days as she watched from a distance, studying this strange girl who had defended her against a grown man. Jessica attended Emerald Heights Academy, the most expensive private school in Lagos, where tuition cost more than most families earned in a year. Amara had once attended a school, not as grand as Emerald Heights, but a school nonetheless, until the fees became impossible and the headmaster personally escorted her to the gate, his face hard with businesslike cruelty. "Your mother is mad, and your father is dead," he had said flatly. "We cannot run a charity for street children." Those words had carved themselves into Amara's soul, sharp and permanent as scars. Now, she stole her education like a thief, pressing her face against fences, memorizing lessons meant for children whose parents could pay. But Jessica was different from the other wealthy children. Amara noticed it in the way she sat alone during break time, in the way other girls whispered behind their hands when she walked past, in the way her shoulders slumped when teachers returned her test papers. One afternoon, Amara watched as Jessica's mathematics teacher held up her exam paper for the entire class to see. 17%, the teacher announced, her voice dripping with disappointment. Jessica Adeyemi, daughter of Chief Adeyemi, one of the richest men in Nigeria, and you cannot even solve basic algebra. Perhaps money cannot buy intelligence after all. Laughter rippled through the classroom. Jessica's face burned red, her hands trembling as she took the paper. Amara felt something twist in her chest. Not pity exactly, but understanding. She knew what it felt like to be humiliated, to be reduced to nothing in front of everyone. Different circumstances, same pain. That evening, Amara found Jessica sitting alone beneath the massive mango tree that grew just outside the school's eastern fence. The tree was ancient, its branches spreading like protective arms over the dusty ground. Jessica was crying. Not the dramatic sobs of someone seeking attention, but the quiet, hopeless tears of someone who had given up. Amara approached slowly, her bare feet silent on the packed earth. "You made a mistake in question 5, she said softly. Jessica's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock and something else, embarrassment at being caught crying by a street girl. "What?" she managed, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Amara pointed at the crumpled test paper lying beside Jessica. "Question 5. You used the wrong formula. You should have used the quadratic formula, not simple factoring. The equation had no rational roots." Jessica stared at her, mouth slightly open, as if Amara had suddenly started speaking a foreign language. How do you know that?" Amara shrugged, suddenly self-conscious of her torn dress and dirty skin. "I watched the classes, through the fence. I used to go to school before." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Jessica looked down at her test paper, then back at Amara, really seeing her for the first time. "You learned quadratic equations by watching through a fence?" There was no mockery in her voice, only wonder. Amara nodded. "I learn everything that way. Mathematics, English, science. I write it all down in my notebooks." A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant honking of traffic and the chirping of evening birds settling into the mango tree's branches. Then Jessica did something unexpected. She picked up her school bag, pulled out her mathematics textbook, and held it out to Amara. "Show me," she said simply. "Show me how to solve these problems." Amara hesitated. This could be a trap, a cruel joke that would end in more humiliation. But something in Jessica's eyes, a genuine desperation, a plea for help, made her take the book. She sat down beside Jessica on the ground, ignoring the way her stomach growled with hunger, and opened the textbook. "Okay," she began, her voice gaining confidence as she slipped into the rhythm of teaching. "Let's start with the basics. When you have an equation like this..." For the next hour, as the sun painted the sky in shades of crimson and gold, Amara explained mathematical concepts with a clarity that Jessica's expensive teachers had never managed. Jessica listened, actually listened, scribbling notes and asking questions. And something magical happened. Jessica began to understand. When they finally parted ways, Jessica stood and dusted off her expensive uniform. "Will you be here tomorrow?" she asked. Amara nodded, though part of her didn't believe this moment was real. "The mango tree, same time?" Jessica suggested. "I'll bring more questions, and..." She paused, reaching into her bag and pulling out a wrapped sandwich. "I didn't eat lunch today. You should have it." She placed it in Amara's hands before Amara could refuse. The sandwich was still warm, filled with chicken and cheese and vegetables Amara couldn't name. Her eyes stung with tears she refused to let fall. "Thank you," she whispered. Jessica smiled. A real smile. Not the practiced one Amara had seen her use with teachers and classmates. "No, thank you. You just explained in 1 hour what my teachers couldn't explain in 1 month. I'll see you tomorrow, Amara." She said the name like it mattered, like Amara was a real person, not just another invisible street child. As Jessica walked back toward the waiting Mercedes, Amara clutched the sandwich and watched her go. She didn't eat it immediately. Instead, she ran back to her cardboard shelter where her mother sat rocking back and forth, singing to invisible angels. "Look, Mama," Amara said softly, unwrapping the sandwich and breaking it in half. "We have real food tonight. Chicken and everything." Her mother took the offered half and ate mechanically, her mind somewhere far away where Amara couldn't follow. But Amara didn't mind. As she savored her portion, tasting flavors she had almost forgotten existed, she allowed herself something dangerous. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, tomorrow would come. Maybe Jessica would return. Maybe beneath that mango tree something was beginning that would change both their lives forever. She didn't know then how right she was. She didn't know that this friendship would eventually lead her to the most powerful man in the city, to a transformation beyond her wildest dreams. All she knew was that for the first time in years, she wasn't completely alone. The mango tree became their sanctuary. Every day after school, Jessica would slip away from her driver and bodyguard, claiming she needed to visit the library or attend extra lessons. Instead, she would meet Amara in the shade of those sprawling branches, and there, on the dusty ground, a miracle unfolded. Amara taught with a passion that burned like fire in her chest. She had no teaching degree, no certificate, no authority except the absolute mastery of subjects she had stolen from open windows and chain-link fences. But she had something more valuable than credentials. She had the ability to make difficult concepts simple, to break down complex problems into pieces small enough for Jessica to swallow. Within 2 weeks, Jessica's quiz scores began to climb. Within a month, she correctly answered a question in class that made her teacher pause mid-lecture and stare at her in disbelief. But their arrangement wasn't one-sided. Jessica brought things Amara desperately needed, not just food wrapped in expensive containers, but textbooks, notebooks with clean pages, pens that actually worked. She brought her school's past examination papers so Amara could see what real tests looked like. And sometimes, she brought something even more precious. Stories of a world Amara had never known. She talked about family dinners in dining rooms bigger than most people's homes, about birthday parties with chocolate fountains and live bands, about summer vacations in London and Paris. Amara listened with hungry attention, storing every detail like treasures in a vault. Not because she envied Jessica's life, though there were moments when envy did gnaw at her heart, but because these stories reminded her that different worlds existed beyond the one that had trapped her. Possibility. That's what Jessica's stories represented. The possibility that life could be something other than suffering. One afternoon, as they worked through chemistry equations, Jessica suddenly stopped writing and looked at Amara with an expression of deep confusion. "How are you so smart?" she asked bluntly. "I have the best teachers in Nigeria. I have private tutors who come to my house. I have every resource money can buy. But you live on the street and you're teaching me things my teachers can't explain. How?" Amara was quiet for a long moment, watching a line of ants march past her foot, each one carrying a burden bigger than itself. "When you have nothing," she finally said, "knowledge becomes everything. I can't afford to be stupid. I can't afford to waste a single opportunity to learn because I don't know when another one will come. Every lesson I see through a fence might be the last one. So I pay attention like my life depends on it, because it does." Jessica absorbed these words with the solemnity of someone encountering a profound truth for the first time. She looked down at her expensive textbooks, her designer pen, her pristine uniform, and something shifted in her understanding. "I've been taking everything for granted," she said quietly. "Everything." Amara didn't respond. What could she say? That yes, Jessica had been ungrateful? That she had wasted opportunities Amara would kill for? The truth was too sharp, too likely to cut through the delicate friendship they were building. Instead, Amara simply said, "You're not taking it for granted anymore. You're here. You're learning. That's what matters." Jessica nodded, wiping her eyes quickly. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. "I brought you something," she said, her voice uncertain. "I don't know if you'll want it, but—" She unwrapped the cloth to reveal a school uniform. A real uniform, the kind worn by students at Emerald Heights Academy. The green and gold crest gleamed in the afternoon sun. Amara's breath caught in her throat. She reached out to touch the fabric, then pulled her hand back as if it might burn her. "Jessica, I can't. I don't go to your school. I can't afford—" "I know," Jessica interrupted gently. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I just thought maybe you could wear it sometimes when you're studying. Maybe it would feel like you belong somewhere." The kindness of this gesture was almost too much to bear. Amara took the uniform with trembling hands, holding it against her chest. It smelled clean, like expensive detergent and sunshine. She imagined wearing it, pretending for just a few hours that she was a real student with a real future. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Thank you, Jessica." They sat in silence after that, both girls understanding that something profound had just passed between them. This wasn't charity. This was friendship. Messy, complicated, but real. And for Amara, it was worth more than gold. But even as their friendship deepened, Amara's other life continued its brutal march. Each morning, she woke before dawn to help her mother bathe in a bucket of cold water, washing away the filth of street living. She dressed her mother's wounds, sores that appeared and wouldn't heal, bruises from falls when her mind wandered too far into darkness. She fed her what little food they had, then left her in the care of Mama Nkechi, an old woman who sold oranges on the corner and had enough kindness left to watch over the mad woman for a few hours each day. Then Amara would begin her rounds, selling water, running errands for market women, sometimes picking through garbage for bottles and cans she could sell to recyclers. Every naira counted. Every coin was a small victory against starvation. And through it all, she carried her notebooks, stealing moments to review what she had learned, to prepare for her next session with Jessica. One evening, as she was selling water near the market, she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. Two women were talking, their voices low but clear enough for Amara to catch the words. "That mad woman under the bridge. Someone should call the authorities. She's getting worse. Yesterday, she nearly walked into traffic." The other woman clicked her tongue in agreement. "They'll take her to Yaba Left, you know? The asylum. And the girl who takes care of her? She'll end up in a children's home or worse, on the streets permanently." Amara's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped her tray of water sachets. Fear, cold and sharp, sliced through her chest. She couldn't let them take her mother away. She couldn't let them separate them. Her mother was all she had left of family, of love, of her former life. Even if her mother no longer recognized her most days, even if the woman she had known was buried deep beneath layers of madness, she was still Mama. And Amara would fight anyone who tried to take her away. 3 months into their secret arrangement, Jessica achieved something remarkable. She scored 87% on her mathematics examination. 87%. In a subject she had been failing catastrophically just months before. Her teacher, Mrs. Okonkwo, stared at the paper as if it might be counterfeit. "Jessica," she said slowly, her voice heavy with suspicion, "did someone help you with this exam?" The classroom fell silent. Every student turned to watch. Jessica's face flushed, but her voice was steady when she replied, "No, ma'am. I studied hard. I finally understood the concepts. Mrs. Okonkwo's eyes narrowed. Come to the board. Solve this problem for me now. She wrote a complex equation across the whiteboard, similar to those on the exam. Jessica stood, her heart pounding, and walked to the front of the class. She picked up the chalk, and for a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. Then she heard Amara's voice in her head, patient and clear, explaining how to break down the problem into manageable pieces. Jessica wrote out the solution, step by methodical step. Her handwriting was shaky, but her mathematics was flawless. When she finished and turned around, Mrs. Okonkwo's expression had transformed from suspicion to genuine shock. How? The teacher began, then stopped. This is extraordinary, Jessica. In all my years of teaching, I have never seen such dramatic improvement. What changed? Jessica wanted to tell the truth. She wanted to shout that a homeless girl with no shoes and torn clothes had taught her more than the most expensive tutors in Lagos. But she knew what would happen if she revealed Amara's existence. Questions would be asked. Authorities would be called. Amara might be taken away, put in foster care, separated from her mother. So instead, Jessica simply said, I found a better way to study, ma'am. I found someone who believed I could learn. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. That afternoon, Jessica ran to the mango tree, clutching her test paper like a trophy. Amara was already there, sitting cross-legged in the dust, her own notebook spread before her. 87%! Jessica screamed, waving the paper in the air. Amara, I got 87%. Amara leaped to her feet, and for the first time since they had met, she allowed herself to truly smile. A wide, uninhibited grin that transformed her thin face into something radiant. I knew you could do it, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I knew you were smart. You just needed someone to explain it differently. They hugged, these two girls from impossibly different worlds, holding each other under the mango tree as if they could merge their realities through sheer force of will. And in that moment, they were not rich girl and poor girl, not privileged and homeless. They were simply two young souls who had found in each other something both had been missing, belonging. But joy is a fragile thing in a world built on inequality. That same evening, as Amara made her way back to her cardboard shelter, she found her mother gone. Panic exploded in her chest like a bomb. Mama Nkechi, she screamed, running to the orange seller's stall. Where's my mother? The old woman's face was grave. Child, the police came. Someone reported her. They said she was a danger to herself and others. They took her to Yaba Psychiatric Hospital. The world tilted beneath Amara's feet. No, 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 she whispered, her voice breaking. They can't take her. She's all I have. I have to get her back. Mama Nkechi shook her head sadly. That hospital doesn't release patients without family to care for them. And you, child, you are not considered capable. You're too young, too poor. They'll keep her there. The words hit Amara like physical blows. Too young, too poor. Always too something, or not enough something else. She ran through the darkening streets toward Yaba Psychiatric Hospital, her lungs burning, her vision blurred with tears. By the time she reached the imposing concrete building, night had fallen completely. Security guards stood at the gate, their faces hard with the cruelty of men who had seen too much suffering and had learned to protect themselves through indifference. Please, Amara begged, pressing her face against the iron bars. My mother is in there. I need to see her. Please." "Visiting hours are over," one guard said flatly. "Come back tomorrow with a guardian." "I don't have a guardian," Amara screamed. "I only have my mother, and you took her." The guard's face didn't change. "Not my problem, girl. Now move along before I call the police for loitering." Amara sank to the ground, her back against the fence, and sobbed. She cried for her mother, for herself, for the impossibility of her situation. She cried until no tears were left, until she was empty and hollow and broken. That's where Jessica found her at midnight. Amara didn't know how Jessica had known where to look, but suddenly she was there, climbing out of her father's Mercedes, still in her pajamas with a coat thrown over them. "Uncle Joseph, wait here," Jessica commanded the driver, then ran to Amara and wrapped her arms around her friend's shaking shoulders. "What happened?" she asked gently. Through hitching breaths, Amara explained. Jessica listened, her face growing more determined with each word. When Amara finished, Jessica stood up, brushing the dust from her expensive coat. "We're going to fix this," she said with absolute certainty. "I don't know how yet, but we will. I promise you, Amara. You won't face this alone." Amara wanted to believe her. God, how she wanted to believe. But hope felt like a luxury she could no longer afford. Still, Jessica's presence was a small comfort, a reminder that she wasn't completely invisible, that at least one person in this massive, indifferent city actually cared whether she lived or died. Jessica made her driver take them both to the hospital entrance. She demanded to speak with someone in charge, using her father's name like a weapon. "I am Jessica Adeyemi, daughter of Chief Emmanuel Adeyemi. This girl's mother was admitted today. We need to know her status and visiting rights." The power of that name was immediate and undeniable. The night supervisor appeared, suddenly solicitous and apologetic. "Miss Adeyemi, of course, but the patient is unaccompanied. The girl here is a minor without legal guardianship. We cannot release information to her." Jessica's jaw tightened. "Fine, then release it to me. I'm asking on behalf of my father, who takes an interest in humanitarian cases." It was a lie, but a convincing one. The supervisor hesitated, then nodded. "The patient is stable. She's sedated now. She can have visitors tomorrow during regular hours, but they must be accompanied by an adult." Jessica turned to Amara. "I'll come with you tomorrow. We'll see your mother together. And then we're going to tell my father everything." Amara spent that night in the back of the Mercedes, curled up on the leather seat, while Uncle Joseph drove in slow circles around the neighborhood. Jessica sat beside her, holding her hand, neither of them speaking. What was there to say? The world was cruel and unfair, and no amount of words could change that fundamental truth. But as the city lights blurred past the tinted windows, Amara felt something she hadn't felt in years. The sense of being protected, even if just for a moment, even if it couldn't last. When dawn broke over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jessica finally spoke. "I have to tell my father about you," she said quietly. "About us, about everything." Amara's stomach clenched with fear. "Jessica, no. If your father finds out about me, he'll forbid you from seeing me. He'll think I'm using you, taking advantage." "Stop," Jessica interrupted gently. "My father isn't who you think he is. Yes, he's rich. Yes, he's powerful. But he's also kind. At least, he used to be before work consumed him. Maybe this will remind him." But Amara's fear was too deeply ingrained to be dismissed so easily. She had learned through brutal experience that wealthy people didn't help poor people out of kindness. They helped for tax benefits, for photo opportunities, for the warm glow of feeling generous without actually changing anything. Jessica, please think about this. Once he knows, once anyone from your world knows, everything will change. They'll separate us. They'll send me to an orphanage, or worse. They'll keep my mother locked away forever. Her voice cracked on the last word. Jessica squeezed her hand tighter. Or, she said slowly, my father might actually help. Real help. Not charity, but actual change. Amara, I know this is terrifying. I know you don't trust adults, especially wealthy ones. But we can't fix this alone. We need help. We need someone with power and resources on our side. Amara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her chest. Trust or run. Risk everything or lose everything. Finally, she whispered, okay, tell him. But if this goes wrong, if they take me away from my mother permanently, I'll never forgive you. Jessica flinched at those words, but nodded. Fair enough. They went first to the hospital, where Jessica's name and money smoothed every obstacle. They were escorted to a ward where Amara's mother lay in a clean bed with actual sheets, her hair washed, her wounds bandaged. She was sedated, barely conscious, but alive. Amara sat beside the bed and took her mother's hand, feeling the warmth of living flesh, and sobbed. Jessica stood quietly in the corner, giving her friend privacy in this moment of raw grief and relief. Mama, Amara whispered, I'm going to get you out of here. I promise. I'm going to find a way to take care of you properly. Just please don't give up. Please keep fighting. Her mother's eyes fluttered open for just a second, confused and unfocused, then closed again. It was enough. She was still there, somewhere deep inside the prison of her broken mind. She was still there. That afternoon, Jessica took Amara to the Adeyemi mansion. Amara had seen wealthy homes before, but only from the outside, glimpsed through gates and walls. Actually entering one was overwhelming. The driveway alone was longer than the entire street where she usually slept. Palm trees lined the path, their fronds rustling in the wind. Fountains burbled peacefully. The house itself looked like something from a magazine, all white columns and massive windows and manicured gardens. Amara felt like an intruder, a smudge of poverty staining this perfect world. She was suddenly conscious of her torn dress, her dirty feet, her unwashed hair. I can't go in there, she said, stopping at the entrance. Jessica, look at me. I don't belong in a place like this. Jessica turned, her expression fierce. You belong anywhere I say you belong. Come on. And don't apologize for existing. You have nothing to be ashamed of. They entered through the front door, where a housekeeper gasped at the sight of Amara. Jessica ignored her shocked expression and led Amara straight to her father's study. Chief Emmanuel Adeyemi sat behind an enormous desk made of dark wood. His phone pressed to his ear, his face creased with concentration as he discussed some business deal. He was a large man, tall and broad-shouldered, with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much of the world's corruption to be easily surprised. When he saw Jessica, he held up one finger, wait, and finished his call. Then he set down the phone and looked at his daughter with mild curiosity. Jessica, what is this? Who is this girl? His eyes took in Amara's appearance with the quick assessment of a man trained to evaluate worth instantly. Amara saw something flicker in his expression. Pity, maybe, or disgust. She couldn't tell which. "This is Amara, Papa," Jessica said, her voice stronger than Amara had ever heard it. "She's my friend. She's also my teacher. For the past 3 months, she's been tutoring me in mathematics and science. She's the reason I'm finally passing my classes. She's the reason I finally understand anything at all." Chief Adeyemi's eyebrows rose. "This street child has been teaching you?" There was skepticism in his voice, but also a hint of interest. "Yes," Jessica said firmly. "This street child, as you call her, is the most intelligent person I've ever met. She taught herself advanced mathematics by watching classes through fences. She knows chemistry and physics and literature despite never having owned a single textbook. She's brilliant, Papa. And she's dying on the streets because no one will help her." The study fell silent. Amara could hear her own heartbeat, loud as thunder in her ears. Chief Adeyemi leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin, studying Amara with new intensity. "Tell me, child," he said finally, addressing Amara directly. "Why did you help my daughter? What did you hope to gain?" And there it was. The question Amara had been dreading. She could lie, say something noble about loving education and wanting to help. But something in Chief Adeyemi's eyes told her he would smell a lie from a mile away. So she told the truth. "I wanted food, sir. Jessica brings me food. I was starving and she had lunch she didn't eat, and I thought if I helped her with homework, maybe she'd keep bringing me sandwiches." The brutal honesty of this confession seemed to shock everyone in the room. Jessica's face fell. Chief Adeyemi's expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, the wealthy man began to laugh. Not mockingly, but with genuine appreciation. "At least you're honest," he said. "Most people would have invented some noble story about loving education. But you told the truth. You were hungry, so you traded your knowledge for food. That's pragmatic. That's survival. That's honest capitalism." He stood up, walked around the desk, and for the first time, really looked at Amara. Not at her torn clothes or dirty feet, but at her eyes. "Jessica," he said, still looking at Amara, "go ask the cook to prepare a meal. A real meal. Our guest looks like she hasn't eaten properly in months." Then, addressing Amara, he said, "Sit down, child. You and I need to talk." Amara sat in the leather chair across from Chief Adeyemi, her small body barely making a dent in the expensive upholstery. Her hands trembled in her lap, and she clasped them together to stop the shaking. This man held her entire future in his powerful hands, and she had no idea what he planned to do with it. Chief Adeyemi watched her carefully, his business mind already working through the implications of what his daughter had revealed. "Tell me about yourself," he said, his voice softer than before. "Where do you come from? Where are your parents?" Amara swallowed hard, tasting fear on her tongue. "My father died 4 years ago, sir. Heart attack. He was a teacher. My mother got sick after he died, in her mind. She stopped recognizing things. She started seeing things that weren't there. We lost our home because we couldn't pay rent. We've been on the streets ever since." The words came out flat and mechanical, drained of emotion through too many retellings. Chief Adeyemi's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or memory. "And your education? You said you watched classes through fences. Where were you enrolled before?" "St. Agnes Primary School, sir. I was top of my class. But after my father died and my mother got sick, We couldn't pay the fees. They expelled me in primary 4. Since then, I teach myself. She lifted her chin slightly, pride pushing through the fear. I haven't stopped learning just because I don't have money. I won't let poverty make me stupid. This declaration seemed to amuse Chief Adeyemi. The corner of his mouth twitched upward. No, he agreed. Poverty hasn't made you stupid. If anything, it's made you sharper than most children with every advantage. He stood and walked to the window, looking out over his manicured grounds. Do you know what I did before I became wealthy, Amara? I sold newspapers on the street. Not so different from your water bottles. I know what hunger feels like. I know what it's like to be invisible to people who matter. I climbed out of that hole through ruthlessness and luck, and refusal to accept my circumstances. And now I see that same fire in you. He turned back to face her, and his expression had shifted into something Amara couldn't quite read. I'm going to investigate your story, he said bluntly. I'm going to verify that you're telling the truth. If you are, if you're really as brilliant as my daughter claims and as desperate as you appear, then we'll discuss options. But if you're running some kind of elaborate scam, trying to take advantage of my daughter's kindness, you'll discover that I can be as ruthless as I am generous. Do we understand each other? Amara's throat was dry, but she managed to nod. Yes, sir. Investigate everything. You'll find I'm telling the truth. Chief Adeyemi smiled, but it was the smile of a predator acknowledging worthy prey. Good. Now go eat. You look like you're about to faint. He pressed a button on his desk, and moments later, a housekeeper appeared to escort Amara to the dining room. As she left the study, she heard him pick up his phone and begin making calls. Her fate was now in motion, and there was nothing she could do but wait. The dining room was more intimidating than his study. A table that could seat 20 people stretched out before her, covered in a white cloth so clean it seemed to glow. The housekeeper, a kind-faced woman named Blessing, guided Amara to a seat and then disappeared into the kitchen. Moments later, Jessica appeared and sat beside her, squeezing her hand under the table. How did it go? She whispered. He's investigating my story, Amara replied quietly, making sure I'm not lying. Jessica nodded. That's good. He always investigates. It means he's taking this seriously. Before Amara could respond, Blessing returned carrying a tray loaded with food. Jollof rice, fried plantains, grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, fresh fruit, and a glass of cold juice. The smell alone made Amara's eyes water. It had been so long since she'd seen this much food in one place, let alone food meant just for her. She stared at the plate, overwhelmed. Eat, child, Blessing said gently. You look half dead from hunger. Amara picked up the fork with trembling hands and took a small bite of rice. The flavors exploded in her mouth, savory, perfectly seasoned, still warm. She had to fight the urge to shovel the food into her mouth like an animal. Instead, she ate slowly, trying to maintain some dignity even as her stomach screamed for more. Over the next 3 days, Chief Adeyemi's investigators moved through Amara's life like ghosts. They visited St. Agnes Primary School and obtained her old records, grades that had been exemplary until her sudden withdrawal. They spoke with Mama Nkechi, who confirmed that Amara cared for her mentally ill mother with devotion unusual for a child. They interviewed the headmaster who had expelled her, and he admitted, with some discomfort, that she had been one of the brightest students he had ever taught. They checked hospital records from Yaba Psychiatric Hospital, confirming that Amara's mother had indeed been admitted with severe mental illness. They even found Amara's old neighbors, who remembered a happy family before tragedy struck. Everything Amara had said was verified. Every word was true. And Chief Adeyemi, reading through the reports in his study, felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine emotion breaking through his carefully constructed businessman's facade. Here was a child who had every excuse to give up, to become another casualty of Lagos's brutal streets, but instead had fought to educate herself with a ferocity that humbled him. On the fourth day, he summoned Amara back to his study. This time, she came wearing clean clothes. Simple but new, purchased by Jessica from her own allowance. Her hair had been washed and braided. She looked less like a street child and more like what she actually was. A bright young girl who had been forced into circumstances beyond her control. Chief Adeyemi gestured for her to sit, and this time his expression was gentle. "I've completed my investigation," he began. "Everything you told me is true. More than true. You actually understated how difficult your situation has been. My investigators tell me you once went 3 days without eating so your mother could have food. Is that correct?" Amara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "They also tell me that you scored in the 98th percentile on standardized tests before you were expelled, that your teachers considered you gifted, that you won academic competitions against students from much wealthier schools." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Amara, you are being wasted on the streets. It's an obscenity, a crime against potential." He stood and walked around his desk to face her directly. "I'm going to make you an offer, and I want you to think carefully before you respond. I'm prepared to take responsibility for you and your mother. I'll ensure your mother receives proper psychiatric treatment, the best available in Nigeria or abroad, if necessary. I'll cover all medical expenses. And you?" He paused, his eyes boring into hers. "You will live here, in this house. You'll attend Emerald Heights Academy with Jessica. You'll have access to tutors, resources, everything you need to develop your extraordinary mind. In exchange, I ask only one thing: that you continue to excel, that you don't waste this opportunity, and that when you're older and successful, you remember to help someone else the way I'm helping you now." The room spun. Amara gripped the arms of the chair, trying to anchor herself to reality. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to girls like her. There had to be a catch, a hidden cost, something terrible lurking beneath this impossible generosity. "Why?" she finally managed to ask. "Why would you do this for me? You don't know me. I'm nobody." Chief Adeyemi smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "You're not nobody, Amara. You're brilliant. You're resilient. And you remind me of someone I used to know, myself, before success softened me. Besides," he added, glancing toward where Jessica waited anxiously in the hallway, "my daughter has been happier these past 3 months than I've seen her in years. She failed her classes not because she was stupid, but because she was miserable and lonely. You gave her friendship and confidence. You gave her purpose. That's worth more than money can buy. So yes, I'm doing this partially for you, but also for Jessica. You two are good for each other. The world tries hard enough to separate people who don't look the same or come from the same circumstances. I refuse to be part of that separation." He extended his hand. "So, what do you say, Amara? Will you let me help you? Will you become part of this family?" Amara stared at his outstretched hand, this gateway to a completely different life. Every instinct screamed that this was too good to be true, that accepting would lead to pain and disappointment. But louder than fear was hope. That desperate, dangerous thing she had tried so hard to kill. She reached out and placed her small hand in his large one. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Yes, please. I'll work hard. I'll make you proud. I promise." Chief Adeyemi squeezed her hand gently. "I know you will, daughter. I know you will." The first night in the Adeyemi mansion, Amara couldn't sleep. She lay in a bed so soft it felt like floating on clouds, beneath sheets that smelled like lavender and sunshine. In a room bigger than the entire space she'd shared with her mother on the streets. The ceiling fan hummed quietly above her, and through the window she could see stars, actual stars, not obscured by pollution or blocked by the roofs of abandoned buildings. Every few minutes, she touched the mattress, the pillow, the clean nightgown Jessica had lent her, just to confirm this was real and not some cruel dream from which she'd wake to find herself back in the cardboard shelter. Around 3 in the morning, unable to bear the unfamiliarity any longer, she crept downstairs, intending to sit on the veranda where the air felt less foreign. But she found Chief Adeyemi there already, sitting in a rattan chair, smoking a cigar, and staring out at his grounds with an expression of deep contemplation. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. Amara froze, caught like a thief. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to disturb you. I'll go back." "Sit," he interrupted, gesturing to the chair beside him. "You're not disturbing me. I couldn't sleep either." Amara sat gingerly on the edge of the chair, her back straight, ready to flee at any moment. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds. Crickets chirping, the distant bark of a dog, the whisper of wind through palm fronds. Finally, Chief Adeyemi spoke. "When I first made money, really significant money, I couldn't sleep in my new house either. I kept thinking the walls would collapse, that the wealth would evaporate like morning mist, that I'd wake up back in the slum where I grew up. It took months before I could relax enough to sleep properly." He turned to look at her. "You're afraid this won't last? That I'll change my mind or discover some reason to send you back to the streets? Is that right?" Amara nodded, grateful that he understood without her having to explain. "People don't usually help people like me, sir. Not without wanting something or getting tired of the burden. I keep waiting for you to realize I'm not worth the trouble." Chief Adeyemi was quiet for a long moment, his cigar glowing orange in the darkness. "Let me tell you something about worth, Amara. Money doesn't create value, it reveals it. You had value long before I came into your life. You had value when you were teaching yourself mathematics through a fence. You had value when you cared for your sick mother instead of abandoning her. You had value when you chose to help Jessica instead of resenting her privilege. I didn't give you worth. I simply recognized what was already there. Do you understand the difference?" Amara felt tears prickling her eyes. "I think so, sir." He nodded. "Good. Now go back to bed. Tomorrow, we're taking you shopping for school uniforms and supplies. Real ones, not borrowed. And then we're going to visit your mother at the hospital. I've arranged for her to be transferred to a private facility with better doctors. You'll see her every weekend." The kindness was almost more than Amara could process. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." Chief Adeyemi waved away her gratitude. "Thank me by becoming everything you're capable of being. That's all the payment I need." The next morning began Amara's transformation. Jessica's mother, an elegant woman named Kioma, who had been traveling when all this occurred, took both girls shopping at Lagos's finest stores. At first, Amara was overwhelmed by the sheer abundance. Racks of clothing in every color, shoes lined up like soldiers, accessories she didn't even know the names for. Mrs. Adeyemi watched her with a mixture of pity and determination. "We're going to start with basics," she said kindly. "School uniforms first, then casual clothes, then shoes. Don't worry about prices. Just tell me if something is uncomfortable." By the end of the day, Amara had a wardrobe that would have been unimaginable just a week ago. 6 school uniforms, perfectly tailored. Casual dresses and trousers for weekends. Proper shoes, not slippers, but real shoes with support and polish. Underwear that actually fit. A warm jacket for Lagos's brief cool season. And books. Oh, the books. Mrs. Adeyemi had taken them to a bookstore and told Amara to choose anything she wanted. Amara had stood frozen in the aisles, surrounded by more books than she'd seen in her entire life, and simply started crying. That evening, before dinner, a hairdresser came to the house. Amara's hair, which had been roughly braided by Jessica's limited skills, was properly washed, conditioned, and styled into neat cornrows that would last for weeks. As she sat in the chair, feeling gentle hands work through her hair for the first time in years, she caught sight of herself in the mirror and didn't recognize the girl staring back. Clean, cared for, almost normal. "You look beautiful," Jessica said from the doorway, and Amara could hear the genuine happiness in her friend's voice. "You look like you belong here." But did she? Could a girl from the streets ever truly belong in a mansion? Could poverty be washed away with expensive shampoo and designer clothes? Amara didn't know. What she did know was that she would try. Try to fit in, try to be worthy of this incredible gift. Try to become someone Chief Adeyemi would never regret saving. The alternative, going back to the streets, back to hunger and fear and sleeping in cardboard, was unthinkable. She would make this work, no matter what it took. The following Monday, Amara attended her first day at Emerald Heights Academy, not as an outsider peering through fences, but as a legitimate student. Jessica walked beside her through the gates, their matching uniforms marking them as equals in this space that had once seemed forbidden. Other students stared. Of course they did. Amara was new, unknown, and obviously not from their world, despite the expensive uniform. Whispers followed them down the hallway. "Who's that girl with Jessica? Where did she come from? Did you see her shoes? Those are last year's style." The petty cruelty of privileged children, for whom the worst tragedy was outdated fashion. Amara kept her head high, channeling every ounce of dignity she possessed. She had survived things these pampered kids couldn't imagine. She wouldn't let their whispers break her. Jessica squeezed her hand. "Ignore them. They'll get used to you. And once they see how smart you are, they'll shut up." The first class was mathematics with Mrs. Okonkwo. The teacher's eyes widened when she saw Amara enter with Jessica, but she said nothing, simply gestured for them to take their seats. When Mrs. Okonkwo began the lesson on quadratic equations, Amara felt a strange sense of déjà vu. She had taught this exact lesson to Jessica under the mango tree months ago. Mrs. Okonkwo was explaining it competently, but Amara could see where students were confused, where the explanation could be clearer. When the teacher asked a particularly complex question, hands remained down. No one wanted to risk being wrong in front of their peers. Amara's hand shot up before she could second-guess herself. Mrs. Okonkwo looked surprised, but nodded at her. "Yes, new student. What's your name?" "Amara, ma'am." "All right, Amara. Show us how to solve this problem." Amara walked to the board, her heart pounding but her mind clear. She picked up the chalk and began writing, explaining each step as she went, her voice growing stronger with confidence. She solved the problem in half the time Mrs. Okonkwo would have taken, using a shortcut method she discovered on her own. When she finished and turned around, the classroom was silent. Mrs. Okonkwo stared at the board, then at Amara, then back at the board. That's remarkable. Where did you learn that approach? Amara met her teacher's eyes steadily. I taught it to myself, ma'am. When you don't have textbooks, you find creative ways to solve problems. For the first time since entering this wealthy world, Amara felt like she belonged. Not because of her new clothes or her connection to the Adeyemi family, but because of what she'd always had. Her brilliant, unstoppable mind. And when she returned to her seat and Jessica grinned at her with pure pride, Amara allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this impossible new life might actually work out. 3 months into her new life, Amara had transformed in ways even she couldn't fully comprehend. Her body had filled out with regular meals, her skin glowed with health, and her eyes no longer carried that hunted, desperate look of someone perpetually on the verge of survival. But the most profound changes were happening internally. She was learning to trust, slowly, cautiously, like someone testing ice on a frozen lake, always ready to pull back if it cracked beneath her weight. Chief Adeyemi had proven himself consistent in his care, never wavering in his commitment, even when Amara tested the boundaries with small acts of defiance or withdrawal. Jessica had become not just a friend, but a sister, someone who defended her fiercely against the whispers and exclusions of their classmates. And Mrs. Adeyemi, who could have been cold or resentful of this stranger in her home, had instead embraced her with maternal warmth that made Amara's chest ache with longing for what she'd lost when her own mother's mind fractured. Every Saturday, Chief Adeyemi personally drove Amara to the private psychiatric facility where her mother was being treated. The first few visits had been heartbreaking. Her mother didn't recognize her in the clean clothes and healthy appearance. "Where's my daughter?" she'd screamed. "What have you done with my Amara?" The doctors had to sedate her while Amara sobbed in the hallway, feeling like she'd lost her mother all over again. But gradually, with the right medications and therapy, her mother began to emerge from the fog of psychosis. There were still bad days when she retreated into her delusions, but there were also good days. Precious, miraculous good days. When her eyes would clear and she'd whisper, "My baby girl, look how beautiful you are. Look how far you've come." On those days, Amara would tell her mother everything about school, about Jessica, about the family that had rescued them both. And her mother would squeeze her hand and cry tears of gratitude and grief for all the years of suffering she'd put her daughter through. One particular Saturday visit marked a turning point. Amara's mother was having one of her clearest days yet, sitting up in bed, her hair washed and styled, wearing a clean hospital gown instead of the torn rags she'd lived in on the streets. Chief Adeyemi had accompanied Amara this time, wanting to meet the woman whose daughter had so impressed him. He entered the room with his characteristic confidence, but his expression softened when he saw the fragile woman in the bed. "Mrs. Okafor," he said gently, using her proper name with the respect it deserved. "I'm Emmanuel Adeyemi. I've been caring for your daughter." Amara's mother looked at him with sudden clarity and understanding. "You're the one," she said, her voice hoarse from years of screaming at invisible demons. "You're the one who saved her. Saved us." Tears streamed down her face. "I couldn't protect her. I tried, but my mind, it broke." I failed her so completely, and you stepped in when I couldn't. How can I ever thank you?" Chief Adeyemi pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed, his powerful frame somehow gentle in this moment. "You don't need to thank me," he said quietly. "Your daughter earned her rescue. She's the bravest, smartest child I've ever encountered. You raised her well in the years when you were yourself. That foundation you built, that's what allowed her to survive when everything fell apart." He paused, then added, "The doctors tell me you're making excellent progress. They believe with continued treatment, you could be well enough for outpatient care within 6 months. When that day comes, there's a small cottage on my property, separate from the main house, private and peaceful. It's yours if you want it. You and Amara can be together again, properly, as mother and daughter should be." Mrs. Okafor broke down completely, sobbing with a mixture of joy and grief that was almost painful to witness. Amara rushed to her mother's side, holding her while she cried. "It's okay, Mama," she whispered. "It's all going to be okay now. We're going to be okay." At school, Amara's academic dominance became impossible to ignore. She topped every mathematics test, excelled in sciences, and devoured literature with an analytical mind that impressed even the most demanding teachers. But this success came with complications. Some students admired her, genuinely inspired by her story and abilities. Others resented her, spreading rumors that she was only at the school because Chief Adeyemi felt sorry for her, that she didn't really belong, that she would never be truly one of them. The cruelest rumors came from a girl named Zainab, whose family wealth rivaled the Adeyemis. Zainab had been the top student before Amara's arrival, and she didn't take kindly to being displaced. One afternoon, Amara overheard Zainab in the bathroom talking to her friends with vicious glee. "My father says Chief Adeyemi is only using that street rat for publicity. He'll get tired of playing savior and send her back where she came from. She probably sleeps in the servants' quarters anyway. There's no way she's actually living like family." The words stung more than Amara wanted to admit. She walked into the bathroom, her face carefully neutral. "Your father is wrong," she said calmly, looking Zainab directly in the eyes. "I live in the main house. I eat at the family table. And Chief Adeyemi adopted me legally last week. I'm an Adeyemi now just as much as Jessica. So maybe you should tell your father to check his facts before spreading gossip." The shock on Zainab's face was almost worth the pain of the earlier words. Almost. The adoption had been Chief Adeyemi's idea, presented to Amara one evening after dinner. "I want to make this official," he'd said. "Not just for legal protections, though those matter, but because you are my daughter now, in every way that counts. I want the world to know it. I want you to carry my name with the same pride Jessica does. What do you say?" Amara had been overwhelmed, barely able to speak through her tears. "Yes," she'd finally managed. "Yes, please. I'd be honored." The legal process had been swift, expedited by Chief Adeyemi's connections and wealth. And now, officially, legally, she was Amara Adeyemi. The girl who had been nobody, who had been invisible and forgotten, now carried one of the most powerful names in Nigeria. It should have felt like victory. It should have felt like the end of struggle. But late at night, when the mansion was quiet and she lay in her soft bed, Amara sometimes felt like an imposter playing a role she hadn't earned. She'd gone from selling water on the streets to being a billionaire's daughter in a matter of months. The transition was too fast, too dramatic. Sometimes she woke up expecting to find herself back in the cardboard shelter. This entire life, nothing but a fever dream. But then morning would come, and Jessica would knock on her door, and they'd walk to school together as sisters, and reality would reassert itself. This was her life now. The question was whether she could truly, fully accept it, or whether she'd always feel like that street girl peering through the fence, forever on the outside looking in. The annual academic competition was Emerald Heights Academy's most prestigious event. Students from the top 10 private schools in Lagos gathered to compete in mathematics, science, literature, and debate. The winners received substantial scholarships and, more importantly, recognition that could shape their academic futures. For years, Emerald Heights had placed second or third, never quite achieving the top spot. This year, Mrs. Okonkwo selected Amara to represent the school in the mathematics category. The announcement came during assembly, and the response was mixed. Supportive students cheered. Others, led by Zainab, muttered about favoritism and questioned whether someone who'd been homeless just months ago could possibly represent their prestigious school. Amara stood on the stage, feeling hundreds of eyes on her, and made a decision. She wouldn't just participate. She would win. She would prove, once and for all, that her mind was the equal of anyone's, regardless of where she'd come from or what she'd endured. This competition would be her declaration, not just to the doubters at her school, but to herself, that she deserved to be here. The weeks leading up to the competition were intense. Amara studied with a focus that bordered on obsession, spending hours in the Adeyemi library working through practice problems. Chief Adeyemi hired a university professor to tutor her, a man who was initially skeptical but quickly became her biggest advocate. "This girl," he told Chief Adeyemi after their first session, "has an intuitive understanding of mathematics I've only seen in graduate students. She doesn't just solve problems. She understands them at a fundamental level. Where did you find her?" Chief Adeyemi smiled. "She found me, actually. Or rather, she found my daughter and changed both our lives." Jessica, meanwhile, appointed herself Amara's support system. She brought her sister water during study sessions, reminded her to eat and sleep, and fiercely defended her against any student who dared question her abilities. The bond between them had evolved from friendship into something deeper, a sisterhood forged not by blood, but by choice and loyalty and mutual salvation. The night before the competition, Amara couldn't eat dinner. Her stomach was twisted with anxiety. What if she failed? What if all the doubters were right? What if she embarrassed Chief Adeyemi and the school? What if she proved that street children couldn't compete with children born into privilege? The what-ifs spiraled endlessly until she felt like she might suffocate. Chief Adeyemi found her on the veranda, their spot now, where they'd had so many late-night conversations. He sat beside her without speaking at first, just presence and solidarity. Finally, he said, "You know what separates winners from losers? Not intelligence. Not even hard work, though that matters. It's the ability to carry pressure without letting it crush you. Right now, you're letting fear tell you stories about failure. But here's what I know. You're the most resilient person I've ever met. You survived things that would break most adults. A mathematics competition? That's nothing compared to what you've already conquered." His words steadied her, gave her something solid to hold on to. "What if I let you down?" she whispered. He turned to face her fully. "Amara, you could fail spectacularly tomorrow, and I wouldn't be disappointed. You've already won by getting here, by refusing to let your circumstances define your future. The competition is just a formality. You've already proven everything that matters." The competition day arrived with cruel sunshine and humidity that made the air feel thick enough to swim through. The venue was the Grand Hall of Lagos State University, a massive auditorium that seated 1,000 people. Students from 10 elite schools filled the front rows, their uniforms color-coded, Emerald Heights in green and gold, their rivals in various other colors. Parents and teachers packed the remaining seats. Chief Adeyemi sat in the front row with Jessica and Mrs. Adeyemi, all three of them wearing expressions of fierce support. The mathematics portion came first. 10 students stood on stage, each at a podium equipped with a tablet for submitting answers. The moderator, a stern professor from the university, explained the rules. You will have 30 seconds to solve each problem. The first correct answer submitted earns 10 points. Speed and accuracy both matter. Are we clear? Amara's hands were sweating, but her mind was sharp and ready. She'd prepared for this. She was ready. The first problem flashed on the screen, a complex algebraic equation. Amara's fingers flew across her tablet. She submitted her answer in 12 seconds. The screen flashed green. Correct. First answer, 10 points. A murmur rippled through the audience. The problems escalated in difficulty. Quadratic equations gave way to calculus, then to probability and statistics. Amara found herself in a rhythm, her mind processing numbers and formulas with machine-like precision. But she wasn't alone at the top. A boy from Lagos International School, a lanky student named Chidi, matched her pace. Problem after problem, they battled for first submission, sometimes Amara winning, sometimes Chidi. The audience grew silent, transfixed by the intellectual duel unfolding on stage. The final problem appeared, a question so complex that several students immediately gave up, stepping back from their podiums. It involved multiple layers of calculation, requiring knowledge of advanced mathematics that most high school students would never encounter. Amara read it once, twice, her mind mapping the solution. She could see the path, but it was narrow and treacherous. One wrong step, and she'd fall into mathematical chaos. Chidi was working through it too. She could see his fingers moving frantically on his tablet. This was it, the moment that would determine the winner. Amara closed her eyes, blocking out the audience, the pressure, the fear. In her mind, she was back at the fence, watching Mrs. Okonkwo explain equations. She was under the mango tree, teaching Jessica. She was in the Adeyemi library with her tutor. Every moment of learning crystallized into this single point in time. She opened her eyes and began to type. Numbers and symbols flowed from her fingers like water from a spring. She submitted her answer with 23 seconds remaining on the clock. The screen turned green. Correct. First answer, 10 points. The hall erupted. Students from Emerald Heights leaped to their feet, screaming. Chief Adeyemi stood, applauding with tears streaming down his face. Jessica was crying and laughing simultaneously. Even students from competing schools applauded the sheer brilliance of what they'd witnessed. Amara stood at her podium, her legs shaking, barely able to process what had just happened. She'd won. A street girl who'd taught herself through fences had just defeated the best mathematics students from the wealthiest schools in Nigeria. The moderator approached her with the trophy, a crystal monument to academic excellence. "Young lady," he said, his stern face cracked by a genuine smile. "That was the most impressive performance I've seen in 15 years of moderating these competitions. What is your name?" Amara took the trophy, feeling its weight, its realness. She looked out at the audience, at Chief Adeyemi's proud face, at Jessica's joyful tears, at her teachers from Emerald Heights who were cheering wildly. And she spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the hall. "My name is Amara Adeyemi, and I'm just getting started." 6 months after the competition, Amara stood in front of 300 students at Emerald Heights Academy's morning assembly. Principal Obasanjo had asked her to give a speech about her journey. And though she'd initially refused, hating the attention, the way people stared at her like she was some kind of miracle exhibit, Chief Adeyemi had convinced her. "Your story isn't just yours anymore," he'd said. "It belongs to every child who's been told they're not good enough. Every kid looking through a fence and believing education is only for the wealthy. Tell them all." So here she stood, in her perfectly pressed uniform, her hair neatly braided, looking every bit like she'd been born into this world. But the girl inside, the girl who remembered hunger and fear and sleeping in cardboard, that girl had stories that needed telling. "I used to watch you," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I used to press my face against the fence and watch classes through the bars. I memorized lessons meant for students who could afford tuition. I taught myself from scraps and stolen glimpses." The assembly hall was utterly silent. "Some of you know my story. Some of you have whispered about it behind my back. The street girl who got lucky. The charity case. The girl who doesn't really belong here." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You're partially right. I don't belong here the way you do. I didn't inherit my place. I didn't have parents who could write checks to guarantee my admission. I earned it by refusing to accept that poverty meant stupidity, that homelessness meant worthlessness. I earned it by teaching myself when no one else would teach me. And then I earned it again by teaching my friend, my sister now, and showing her that intelligence isn't about money or status. It's about curiosity and persistence and refusing to give up." She looked directly at Zainab, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. "But here's what I've learned in the months since Chief Adeyemi became my father. Since this school became my school. I do belong here. Not because I'm brilliant, though I am." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. "But because every student here belongs anywhere their mind can take them. Rich or poor, we all have brains capable of extraordinary things, if we choose to use them. The difference is opportunity. I got mine, but there are thousands, millions of children just like I was, watching through fences, brilliant and desperate and invisible. What are we going to do about them?" The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading through the assembly. Students shifted uncomfortably. Teachers exchanged glances. Amara pressed on. "Chief Adeyemi is establishing a scholarship fund. Full rides for academically gifted students from poor backgrounds. 5 students this year, 10 to next year. Growing every year after that. But money isn't enough. Those students will need what I needed. Friends who see past their circumstances, teachers who believe in them, classmates who don't make them feel like charity cases. They'll need you to remember that brilliance doesn't have a bank balance. Can you do that? Can you be the kind of people who judge others by their character and minds, not their parents' wealth?" She saw heads nodding, saw the principal smiling, saw Chief Adeyemi in the back row with his hand over his heart. But more importantly, she saw recognition in the eyes of students who'd perhaps never thought deeply about their privilege. Seeds planted. Maybe some would grow. After the assembly, as students poured out into the courtyard, a younger girl approached Amara hesitantly. She was perhaps 10 years old, small and thin, wearing a uniform that looked slightly too large. "Miss Amara?" she said quietly. I wanted to thank you. My parents can barely afford the fees here. They sacrifice everything so I can attend. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong, like everyone can tell I'm different. But hearing your story, it helps. It helps to know someone else understands. Amara knelt down to the girl's eye level, seeing herself reflected in those uncertain eyes. What's your name? Ngozi. Well, Ngozi, listen to me. You do belong here. Your parents' sacrifice, your own hard work, that's what matters. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less than. And if they try, you come find me. Okay? Ngozi nodded, her eyes shining, then impulsively hugged Amara before running off. Jessica peered at Amara's elbow. You're becoming quite the inspiration, she teased gently. Amara snorted. I'm just trying to survive each day without feeling like an imposter. Still? Jessica asked, surprised. After everything? After winning the competition? After the adoption? After all this time? Amara was quiet for a moment. Some scars don't heal quickly, but they're healing, slowly. That afternoon, Chief Adeyemi drove Amara to the psychiatric facility for her weekly visit with her mother. But this visit was different. The doctors had called earlier to say Mrs. Okafor was being discharged, deemed stable enough for outpatient care. When they arrived, Amara's mother was waiting in the lobby, dressed in clean clothes, her hair styled, her eyes clear and focused. She looked like the mother Amara remembered from before the illness, before the collapse. Mama, Amara breathed, running into her mother's arms. They held each other, crying and laughing simultaneously. My baby girl, her mother whispered. My brilliant, beautiful daughter. I'm so sorry for everything. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. Mama, stop, Amara said firmly. You were sick. It wasn't your fault. And we're together now. That's what matters. Chief Adeyemi watched this reunion with quiet satisfaction, then cleared his throat. Mrs. Okafor, the cottage is ready whenever you are. Fully furnished, stocked with groceries, everything you need. There's a garden if you'd like to plant flowers or vegetables. You'll have privacy, but also support nearby whenever you need it. Amara's mother turned to him, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Adeyemi, I have no words adequate to thank you. You saved my daughter's life. You saved mine. How does one repay such a debt? Chief Adeyemi shook his head. You don't. You live well. You heal. You watch your daughter become everything she's capable of being. That's all the payment I need. They drove to the Adeyemi estate together. And for the first time in 4 years, Amara and her mother walked into a home. A real home with walls and roof and safety as family. The cottage was small but beautiful, with 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room, and a kitchen that overlooked a small garden. Mrs. Okafor walked through each room slowly, touching furniture, running her fingers over curtains, crying softly. We have a home, she kept repeating. We actually have a home. That night, Amara stayed in the cottage with her mother. Instead of returning to the main house, they cooked dinner together, a simple meal of rice and stew, but it tasted like redemption. They ate at the small table, talking about everything and nothing, rebuilding the relationship that illness had fractured. Tell me about school, her mother said. Tell me everything. I want to hear every detail. So Amara talked, the words flowing like water long dammed. She told her mother about Jessica, about the competition, about the kindness of Chief Adeyemi and Mrs. Kioma, about her dreams of becoming a mathematician or an engineer, or maybe a teacher who helps other children like her used to be. As night fell and they sat together on the cottage porch, watching fireflies dance in the garden, Mrs. Okafor took her daughter's hand. Amara, I want you to know something. During my worst days, when my mind was broken and I couldn't recognize reality, there was always one thing I knew. Always. I knew I had a daughter who loved me, who stayed with me when anyone else would have run. That knowledge, that certainty, was the thread that eventually led me back to sanity. You saved me, baby girl. Before Chief Adeyemi, before the doctors, before any of this, you saved me by refusing to abandon me. Never forget that. Amara leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, feeling pieces of her heart that had been shattered slowly, knitting back together. We saved each other, Mama. We always will. In the distance, she could see the lights of the main house where Jessica and the Adeyemis were probably sitting down to dinner. Tomorrow she'd return there, resume her life as part of that family. But tonight, she was here with her mother, in their cottage, their home. Both worlds, both families, both parts of herself, finally reconciled. 3 years later, Amara stood at the gate of Emerald Heights Academy. But this time she wasn't alone. Beside her were 5 younger students, the first recipients of the Adeyemi Education Foundation Scholarship. All 5 came from backgrounds similar to Amara's: poverty, struggle, brilliance stifled by circumstance. She'd personally helped select them, reviewing applications with Chief Adeyemi, looking for that spark she recognized in herself, the desperate determination to learn despite impossible odds. Nervous? She asked them gently. They all nodded. Good, she said. Nerves mean you care. But here's what I want you to remember. You belong here. Not because someone felt sorry for you, but because you earned it. Your minds, your potential, your refusal to give up. That's your ticket. And whenever you feel like you don't belong, whenever someone makes you feel less than, you come find me. I'll remind you of who you are and what you're capable of. She watched them walk through the gates, these children carrying their own stories of survival and hope. And she thought about the girl she'd been, pressing her face against fences, stealing education in fragments. That girl had become this woman, confident, educated, powerful in ways that had nothing to do with money. She'd come full circle, from desperate student to teacher and guardian. The mango tree still stood at the edge of the school grounds. Amara walked over to it, running her hand along the bark that had sheltered her friendship with Jessica, that had been the birthplace of her transformation. Someone had carved words into the trunk. Recent additions, judging by the fresh marks. Where dreams begin. Amara smiled. Yes, this was where dreams began. Not just hers, but now these 5 new students, and 5 more next year, and more after that. An endless chain of possibility, stretching into a future where maybe, just maybe, no brilliant child would have to watch education through a fence. Maybe poverty would no longer be a prison sentence for the mind. It was an impossible dream, perhaps. But then again, so had been her own rescue. And look how that had turned out. She turned back toward the school, toward her life, toward the future she was building with every choice, every day. The street girl who'd taught a billionaire's daughter had learned the most important lesson of all: that the human capacity for transformation, for compassion, for transcending circumstances was limitless. And that lesson, passed forward from person to person, heart to heart, could change the world. One child at a time, one dream at a time, one chance at a time. The end, but also the beginning.